Hello there, friends. It's Jimmy Maverick. Welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Maverick podcast. Today, we are going to talk about new coaches in the NFL and what their prospects are for fantasy this year, which ones are in great situations and which ones are in terrible situations. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that. Here we go.
Listen up. It's time for the Fantasy Maverick podcast, starring the guy who's going to help you win that fantasy championship, Jimmy Maverick.
Hello there, friends. It's Jimmy Maverick. Welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Maverick podcast. And before we begin, I just wanted to remind you all, please like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that little bell too. That'll let you know when I got new podcast posting. I'm going to try to do one every week here while we're in total off season right now. But today, what I want to talk about is I want to talk about the new coaches in the NFL, new coaches, new coaching staff, and as a general rule, I tend to view a new coach as a positive, man. You know, it is very rare to see a coach retire from the NFL. They're usually fired, and it's usually because they've just outstayed their welcome. And it doesn't matter if you won a Super Bowl, right? You're gone. Philly, Atlanta. Oh yeah, you made it to the Super Bowl a few years ago. Who cares? What have you done for me lately? Right? You're out of here. But usually by the time a coach gets fired, the team has basically already quit on them, and you could see that last year. That you could see that with a lot of these coaching staffs that they just came out of the bat, came out in September, were just totally flat, just like they were the year before. The team had quit on the coach. So a new coach comes in, fresh blood, new system. There's new relationships to form there. And, like I said, in my app, what I had done in the past is if they had a new coach, I just gave those players with the new coach a 1-star bonus to their outlook. I just gave them a little bump on their outlook. And I've decided that's not always a great thing to do, right? Let's look at Adam Gase, right, and the Jets. There never, ever should have been 1-star bonuses applied to any player associated with Adam Gase, right? So I'm going to go through the new coaches, and what I'm going to do this year is I'm only going to assign a bonus to these coaches whose system I like, whose assistant coaches I like, and who already has some established talent to build around. And there are a couple of teams where the cupboard's pretty empty. That's the only way to say it. Last year, we had new coaches like Frank Reich of Washington, Matt Rhule at Carolina, Kevin Stefanski of the Cleveland Browns. Those guys came out and they made improvements to the team. They improved the situation of the team, and more importantly, they generated positive fantasy value for those players on those teams. So, let's look at the new coaches here, and we'll see which ones are really worthy of getting that new coach bonus in the app for the upcoming season. So the first one is I think a very good coach, but coming into a horrible situation, and that's Robert Saleh of the Jets. And Saleh was the defensive coordinator for the 49ers. And he brought in Mike LaFleur, that's brother of the Packers head coach Matt LaFleur, as his offensive coordinator. Now, these guys have a massive turnaround project ahead of them. Now, one thing going for them is you got the you get the bounce from just the fact that Adam Gase is gone, right? We've seen that now in so many cases where as soon as a player escapes the grasp of Matt Gase, he becomes a much better player. Basically everybody except for Le'Veon Bell qualifies, as far as over the past few seasons. So there could be some potential benefit here to the offensive players left in the system, but who are we really talking about here? You got Sam Darnold's gone. He's not going to be there. Who do you got for receivers? You've got Jamison Crowder, right? Maybe Jamison Crowder is going to be like a 10th or an 11th round pick this year. Who do you have as running backs? Well, you got the eternal Frank Gore. I don't know if he's still going to be there this season, but he's not fantasy relevant. You got Pirine there, right? I mean, maybe do you take a chance on Pirine? This is a rebuild back to the foundations of this team. And because it's a defensive offensive coordinator that's taken over as head coach, it's going to be much more focused on building up the defense first. And so again, very limited fantasy opportunities here overall. They're going to have a new quarterback. Probably Zach Wilson of BYU is going to be their selection. They got the number 2 overall pick. But this is a multi-year rebuild. And I'm just not seeing any guy on the Jets who I would like to have for the 2021 season. Now in Dynasty, that's a different thing. Maybe you pick up Zach Wilson late as a rookie quarterback, take a chance on him. Why not? It's going to be a very low-risk opportunity if he even gets drafted at all, which I don't think he's going to be in the top 250. He's not going to be a drafted player. As far as the Jets go, can't give the coaching bonus to them, right? Now, the next situation is a little bit better, and I'm very intrigued here, and I like what they're doing so far. Nick Cerani of the Eagles, former offensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts, so that's a decent offensive system. He brought along Shane Steichen, who was the offensive coordinator for the LA Chargers, who really helped Justin Herbert this past year, so that's also very, very positive. I love the fact that they got rid of Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is now in Indianapolis. I don't know how they swung that trade, but they got him out of there. That means Jalen Hurts is the starting quarterback. I like Jalen Hurts this year. I think he's going to be a late round quarterback that does have some nice upside. Of course, he's got the rushing capability. That's always very important for fantasy football. You also have Miles Sanders, who I think is due for a bounce back season this year. He had a pretty terrible season last year, but once Jalen Hurts took over as quarterback, his play drastically improved. And so what I'm hoping is that we will see more of that this year. That's a positive, right? So there's lots of good stuff happening here. Now the weakest part of this team, obviously, and it has been a chronic issue, is the wide receiver position. There's really nobody in there. And you also have the issue that Zach Ertz, probably gone. That will slightly help Dallas Goedert, but Goedert was very disappointing this last year. He was the tight end 20, so he didn't do anything, even the opportunities when Zach Ertz was out. But losing Zach Ertz does help him. He pretty much is the top receiver on this team. I mean, who else is there? It's like a bunch of no names or has-beens. I do like people talking about the NFL draft, that the Eagles will spend their first round pick on an elite receiver option. That's great. Although, again, with rookie receivers, you really don't see them come on until the second half of the season. So is that a draftable position? But there are some good things here, right? I see very positive things overall for this team. I'm going to have to give them the new coach bonus to make this happen. All right, so the next coach I want to talk about is actually the one I'm most excited about, right? It is the Jaguars, Urban Meyer, coming over from an incredible and outstanding college football career. I mean, you got Florida, you got Ohio State, and he comes into actually a pretty good situation here. I mean, I'm very excited. First of all, right, Jaguars get the number 1 overall pick. Trevor Lawrence is going to be the man. So it is a new quarterback situation. But this could be like a Justin Herbert kind of situation here as far as I'm concerned. And there are really nice offensive assets on this team. Now, let's see here. Now, he's bringing in Darrell Bevell as his offensive coordinator, who's from the Seahawks in Detroit. A little bit less excited about that. Obviously those are two offenses that have struggled, especially for fantasy purposes, right? I mean, you can't really say that the Seattle offense is bad because it's not, but it's just really inconsistent and really inconsistent for fantasy, So how's that going to play out? Likewise, Detroit's one of those teams that just has always seemed to chronically underperform expectations relative to the talent on that team. So anyway, a little bit less excited about that, but I love Urban Meyer. What do we got for assets on the team already? Well, you got James Robinson, who's one of the biggest surprises at running back last year, one of my favorite mid-round pickups. I hope you got him on your team because he was an every week starter once you got him on there. He's back. We've also got the upside, and I'm really, really excited about seeing the potential upside of Laviska Shenault. Again, last year's wide receiver group was by most measures, the most talented group of receivers to ever to enter the NFL. Now, in the end, only 3 ended up being fantasy relevant, right? You had Justin Jefferson, who had an amazing season. You got CeeDee Lamb, who had great season. He's one of my favorite upside breakout players this year. And he was a wide receiver too. And then you had T. Higgins, who ended up with some flex value, right? So there's just 3 of them. And there was like 20 wide receivers that were all rated as outstanding by most of the metrics. So I think there's going to be some massive upside for most of these second-year receivers. This year, they're actually going to get a preseason. They're actually going to get a full training camp, off-season program. There's going to be massive improvement across the board with both of these receivers. But I love Laviska Shenault. He's just one of those players that I'm very, very excited about. Of course, I'm biased because I'm a Buff fan, Colorado Buffaloes all the way. Obviously, his big issue is injuries. Can he stay healthy? And that was an issue all through college. That was an issue in his rookie season, but still, I love the upside here. He's going to be a late-round pickup. He's going to be like a after round 10 kind of guy. And also, you got Chark there, DJ Chark, who had a very disappointing, underwhelming season relative to expectations. Very underwhelming, which was too bad. But now he's going to be dirt cheap on the draft board. I see a bounce back potential there. So we've got some things here. We got some assets. Very positive situation for the Jags. Hopefully they'll be able to make some significant strides this year and really improve offensively. So definitely giving a bonus to the key players of this offense because I think there's a lot to be said there. Even with the potential downgrade of playing with a rookie quarterback, I'm going to have to work on that as well to see if we're going to put in that negative on the outlook for these players. Because, again, I think it's becoming less of an issue. These players are coming into the NFL from college ranks NFL ready, and we've seen that over the past couple of years. Guys immediately come in, can make an impact, or in their second year just really kind of establish themselves as a leader in the NFL. So let's move on. Next team. This is another one that I'm actually pretty excited about. I think this is a good move. Brandon Staley of the Chargers. Now, it is another defensive-minded coach. So and when you look at the Chargers, right, isn't that that's their biggest problem, is this chronic underperformance of this very talented defensive squad. Someone who can make significant strides in that would be a defensive-minded coach. He's coming over from the LA Rams. This is also hilarious that he changed his teams. He didn't have to move. His kids didn't have to move to a different school or anything. Minimal disruption for him personally going from the LA Rams to the LA Chargers, right? But he's bringing in Joe Lombardi, who was the quarterback's coach for the Saints, as his offensive coordinator. I think that's very good too. We want to see Justin Herbert continue to develop, although, again, it is very disruptive for your rookie quarterback to have to learn a brand new offensive season in his second year in the NFL. He already had to learn a new one last year. Now he has to do it again. That's going to be a little bit tough, but there is a significant talent around him. You got Keenan Allen, you got Austin Eckler, you got Hunter Henry. Maybe Hunter Henry will stick around. We'll see. So there is offensive talent there. So this, again, I think it's a very, very positive thing. I do have Justin Herbert as a regression tag, though, so it makes me a little bit less enthusiastic, but I'm still going to give the new coach bonus here to offset some of the negatives on this team. But it's, I think it's a very good situation. Just my concern about Justin Herbert is, my concern with Justin Herbert is the same as what I would have with someone like Baker Mayfield, who came out rookie year, had a great rookie season, then a coaching change, and then a slump in a sophomore year. So again, I am probably going to be steering clear of most Chargers this year, but I think that it's still there's still positive things here. I think it's still a good situation. They will get the new coach bonus to offset some of the negatives. Not quite as positive as with some of these other teams that we've been talking about, but I think it's still good. Now, the next one, again, team in decline, a team with aging talent on the board. Is a new coach really going to be able to turn that around? I'm talking about Arthur Smith of the Falcons, new coach, coming over from the Tennessee Titans where he was the offensive coordinator. So that's very good. That's great. One thing to note, the Tennessee Titans were a run-first team. Obviously, Derrick Henry, you've got a bulldozer there. There is no run game in Atlanta right now. Gurley was a complete bust. Totally awful pick. I'm sorry I ever recommended him. His decline was apparent even before. But who's even on that team without Gurley? Gurley's not going to be there. Ito Smith. There's nobody there of any significant talent. So if we want to see him institute a Tennessee Titan type offense, they're going to have to get a running. They're going to have to spend an early pick to get themselves an elite running back. And that is what everyone's thinking they're going to do. First round, first pick, they're going to go running back, Najee Harris. And that would be great. That would give me a significant boost in confidence for this team. But otherwise, what else do you have going on? Okay, so they brought in Dave Ragone from the Bears as his offensive coordinator. And that guy was the passing game coordinator for the Bears. And I know what you're thinking. Everybody was talking about how awesome the Bears were through the air over the past few years, right? Oh, wait, no, you weren't, right? So that is a concern. That doesn't thrill me. But still, I like Arthur Smith. And the Falcons just seem to be right on the cusp of a complete rebuild, where like the Jets, where the cupboard's completely empty. That's not the case with the Falcons, but it's close. I mean, come on, you got Julio Jones, who's now going to be, I think he's 31 or 32 at the start of the season this year. So he's already a wide receiver in decline, coming off a terrible season. Could be a bounce back candidate, but again, he's an aging wide receiver. Their ceiling every year is going to get lower and lower. And so he might be a bargain on the draft board. I don't know where he's going on draft boards right now. Depending on where he is, I would consider taking him. But you've also got Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is, I think, 36. He's right on the cusp of where I stopped liking quarterbacks. Quarterbacks are usually good for about 16 seasons, and once they hit that 16th season, they hit the wall. Now, of course, Tom Brady, the absolute exception to all of that. But this past year, with the aging quarterbacks, we saw what happened. We saw what happened to Ben Roethlisberger. We saw what happened to Phillip Rivers. We saw what happened to Drew Brees. These guys, they stop being able to make those plays that make them elite quarterbacks. And so that is another concern, All right, so they still have Calvin Ridley, who is a fantastic asset, should continue to build, is a great piece, but that's it. I mean, that's basically it. Maybe Hunter Henry will be a little bit better this year. A second year in the system, actually going to someone from the Tennessee Titans, run first offense. They utilize the tight end more, even though they didn't utilize the tight end a whole lot over in Tennessee this past season. But there is some maybe potential there. Maybe as a tight end too, you grab them. But I don't usually grab tight end twos. But we'll have to see what happens. We'll have to see what happens in the draft, what direction they go. If they go running back and then get themselves a couple of offensive linemen, I'm going to be more excited about this team. We'll see what happens. But right now, I think I'm going to hold off on the new coach bonus, but I might institute it. We'll see how the draft goes, right? So they're kind of borderline. The final one is probably my most disappointing one to talk about. It's the Texans, who picked up David Culley, and I totally get why Deshaun Watson wants out of this situation. They have destroyed his team. They've destroyed his prospects. It's now a complete rebuild. And if Watson leaves, it's a New York Jets rebuild kind of situation. It's going to be like at least 2 or 3 seasons before they do anything again. Culley is coming over from the Ravens, where he served as the assistant head coach, the wide receivers coach, and the passing game coordinator. Again, I'm not impressed. That's not a great passing system like the Bears. It's like, why did these guys get a promotion? I don't understand. But anyway, Culley is keeping Tim Kelly as the offensive coordinator and interim head coach from last season. That's better for continuity. But again, it's a team that's just like on the verge of a complete rebuild. I mean, they've got a 32-year-old running back. They've got wide receivers who can't stay healthy. You got Fuller and you got Cooks. Those guys can't stay healthy. You know, there's no star maker. Deshaun Watson is the best piece of that team. If he leaves, it's a total loss. And I really hope that he gets out. I think there's some better situations for Deshaun Watson. Texans could get a boatload of draft picks out of him and try to just rebuild from scratch. And I think that's where they're probably going to go. But you know, I would not take any Texans players this year. You know, again, for season-long fantasy, you can't trust Cooks. You can't trust Fuller, right? You can't trust either of those guys. They're better for daily fantasy. But more bad news, man. The Texans traded away their first and second round picks in this year's draft as well. They can't even start rebuilding this team this year unless they trade Deshaun Watson. If they trade Deshaun Watson, they could get some first and second round picks out of that for sure and start from scratch. Who did this? Who allowed this to happen? This is so abysmal. I get it. Deshaun Watson, let him go, man. He is disgruntled. He will not perform for you. He will probably hold out if they keep him on the team. Because why would you play for this? Why would you play in this mess? So no way am I getting a new coach bonus to this team, man. This team is a mess, just a disaster, a complete disaster. But that's it. So, you know, we've got 3 good situations. We've got 1 marginal. We've got to wait and see what happens with that. I got 2 absolute no's this season, man. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm changing the new coach bonus so that it's not an automatic if it's a new coach. And I'm only going to assign it right now to the Eagles, the Jags, and the Chargers. That's it. So anyway, good luck this next season. I hope this was informative to you. And like I said, we'll be continuing this every week. We'll talk about a big topic. I got a bunch of stuff on the docket. I want to talk about second-year coaches, who are some guys that can really make some strides in the second year. We've got wide receivers to talk about. We've got contract year play. There's a whole bunch of stuff we need to talk about, but we'll be getting to that. So thank you very much for watching. Again, if you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe. I appreciate you watching these videos, and you know, this is just a fun pastime that I have, and I want to share my knowledge with you, and I want you guys to win some championships. I love it, man. I love winning my championships. Look at that. Won some good money this past year. I did. It was a good year for me money-wise. Not a great year fantasy-wise because of the situations I've been talking about with, like, how I was constantly playing the top scoring team every single week in every league that I played. I don't even get how that happened. But it does. That's what happens. That's the joy and the joy and the despair of fantasy football. So anyway, thank you very much for watching again. I'll be back again next week. Take care. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. All right, leave them below. And that's it. So have a great day, everybody.